here to talk about my thoughts and opinions from my perspective as an urban Inuk. I am from Qamani'tuaq, better known as Baker Lake, Nunavut, but I grew up outside of my traditional territory. This does not mean I was immune to the reality of being an Inuk in Canada. I struggled with the personal impact of Nunavut's very recent history that had on my family as well as myself. I struggled with my identity below the tree line. A few years ago, while I was still in Toronto, Tungasuvvingat Inuit began an outreach project aimed at bringing together Inuit and other urban centers. Prior to this, I had not met another Inuk living in the city, but suddenly I was connected with so many others who had similar stories to me. Other urban Inuit who had become accustomed to being the first Inuk most people had met. What I had learned from these connections was the impact that connecting as a community can have on an individual. Suddenly, I had developed a network of people that knew the feeling of going to their native Canadian center and not having any programming or services designed for their culture. Individuals that tried to maintain a connection with their histories so far away from their traditional lands, with limited people around them willing and able to teach them. But together we began a community, which made us all stronger. I've attended a few events and conferences in and around Canada recently, and what I've encountered as of late is a pervasive theme of reconciliation. Suddenly, governments and organizations are asking elders to open and close events. Individuals are making efforts to learn about the ugly side of Canadian history that previously only Indigenous people cared about. And what I've encountered here is that people still focus towards First Nations and Métis culture. I try to think that it's fair. The majority of these events are on First Nations and Métis territory. There usually are trees, but I also know that it's not fair. Virtually every individual I met in Ontario that cared to discuss my heritage did not know what an Inuk was. They would ask me about First Nations issues or cultures, and I found myself having to explain again and again, I am not First Nations, I am an Inuk. We are not the same. In present day, we reside in a place with established borders. We're told Canadians have the right to travel within this country and still call it Canada. We also only have 3 groups of Indigenous people. As Canada at present embraces the idea of reconciliation, I envision and hope for a Canada where this explanation is not a requirement for Inuit outside of the regions, where the burden of having to explain who and what I am without having to resort to saying the people with the fur and the dogs does not rest with the individual, but rather Canada as a whole will know who Inuit are. We face many issues as Indigenous people in Canada, some of which are shared with First Nations and Métis from the south, but many are Inuit specific. Nunavut is coming up on being established for 18 years. We are still working on developing independence and improving life for individuals, as well as learning how to run a territory. What I learned from the community we built in Toronto is that united Inuit are strong. I envision a Canada where we can build a national connection, sharing knowledge, experiences, and working together to improve Inuit lives across Canada. At this time, we face so many barriers to national connectivity, starting with geographical and ending with technological. When I try to envision the potential for the future of Canada, my main focus seems very outdated in 2017. When I lived in an urban setting, I took the constant rapid connectivity for granted. And now that I'm back up north and focus my thoughts on the future of Canada, I hope for digital connectivity to be a priority in the north. As we work towards quality of life improvement for Inuit across the nation, the thoughts that I maintain include the importance of bringing critical services to communities and the importance of access to university education. When we are able to improve digital connectivity, I believe that this will align the 2 issues together. Individuals that want to work in mental health or addictions but do not want to leave their communities would not have to if access to online learning becomes available and technology becomes more accessible to the individual. When I was pursuing my undergrad working with the Indigenous Studies Department of my university, I met a young Inuk from Nunavut who was considering attending my school for political studies. When I asked why he chose that field, he responded he wanted to run Nunavut. The ambition he displayed is present in today's youth, but the opportunity to pursue it is immensely limited. This young man aimed to give back to the territory in a meaningful way, but was unable to do so without having to travel across the country and leave this beautiful place for 4 years, if not more, of his life. Even still, arriving at university, the culture shock and isolation of ending up at a larger city can be challenging. Without a network and support, I have seen Nunavut give up their studies prior to completion to return home. Despite analysis to the contrary of university availability in the territories, I believe that a university education availability is required for individuals in the 3 regions, whether that be through online learning or the much wanted and needed Arctic University. I'm very proud of my heritage. I'm proud of being an Inuk and always ensure that this is something I bring with me no matter the setting. It has been a struggle for me to learn what I know about my ancestors' way of life and traditions. It is something I continue to strive to learn about, and at the base of my vision of the future, it's a fairly selfish dream. I would like to reconnect with Qamani'tuaq to learn what I can about my great-grandparents' way of life, as learning what I have to date has helped me on my personal journey, and I believe it will do the same for Inuit across the country. As I said, my vision of the future is fairly outdated, but it is something the territories are still struggling with. I would like to see the future hold connectivity which would allow Inuit to connect across the country and share knowledge that is both traditional and modern skill development to improve our networks and our way of life. I've been exploring Iqaluit these last couple of days, and I wandered into the college. Here I found so many books that I had never heard of, despite spending hours combing online bookstores looking for this exact type of thing, interviews with elder traditional knowledge. I even found a book called Qamani'tuaq, which showcased my mmpa's artwork. I would never have found this if I had not physically visited Iqaluit. We still have healing to do as a community and country, and I believe developing this connection, these opportunities and networks would help. I envision a Canada where Inuit in the 3 regions can have homegrown people that have knowledge of both critical professional service as well as traditional knowledge, which can and will bring about societal and communal healing. Matna.